what's up? It's Vampire Bride, and today we're starting our custom water cooling build. So that means we are getting all of this off this table so that we can use it as a workspace over there. We have a nice jerry-rigged setup for the camera right now, but we'll talk about that another time. For now, we're gonna move all of this off this table and get this taken apart, cleaned up, all the fans dusted, all that good stuff, so that it's ready for the custom water cooling kit. I'm quite excited, but a little nervous because it is our first time to heat up and bend the tubing, and we're just hoping that it all goes together smoothly, but I guess we'll see. I'm just gonna start unplugging everything and setting it close to where it's supposed to be. Okay, so these are a little heavy, but we're gonna do it anyway. So we actually haven't got the review for the standing desk out, so y'all are actually getting a little bit of a sneak peek. Now I gotta do squats, come on now. Oh, y'all are killing me. I already went to the gym today, like I didn't need more. I didn't do it. Wireless mouse. I'm gonna move the table over there and then try to get that heavy thing from over there. And then we'll switch angles and all that, so for the take apart and clean up. Okay, so that mess is all moved over there and time to get rid of some dust. Gonna have to refigure out the camera layout, so it'll literally only be a second to y'all, but it's gonna be a minute for us. Okay, so this part gets a little bit tedious because we have to take apart everything and, of course, while we're in there, clean it up. So it wouldn't make any sense for me to not do a clean because it needs to happen every few months anyways. So we're gonna go ahead and start with taking the back piece off, and then I have rubbing alcohol, Q-tips, cotton balls, microfiber rags, and my Vengeance screwdriver to help me out, which I absolutely love. This thing, let's see if we can not lose screws for once. We'll just set this to the side for all the screws because I am great at losing screws while doing projects. Okay. For the last couple of bins, I do it on low heat just because I prefer to do it slowly to prevent kinking. I went for quite a difficult setup, like layout, considering it is the first time I'm doing a water-cooled loop and not an AIO, and it's the first custom water-cooled loop. And so I definitely jumped in. I am quite nervous. I think even people that have done multiple custom loops can get kind of nervous, or will still get nervous, just because water and electronics obviously do not mix well. But it works. This is like a labyrinth, and I have to make sure it's always turned the right way. This rag obviously protects my hand, but it also helps a little bit making sure I hold or don't let this get too heated and bend. You think of it as it has 4 directions to turn: up, down, left, right, whatever. But really, it's a complete 360 circle that you could move it in, and if it's not right at where you need it, it's not going to work. What would be really hard is if there were lines in the tubing and you had to make sure that all the lines like stayed the direction they're supposed to go and not get twisted. I feel like that would make it even more difficult. This one was going to have to be difficult anyway, because I was going to have to avoid the GPU, the RAM, Elgato card. Alright, I'm going to add some blue in. The idea here is for it to end up being like an icy, really light blue once it gets all mixed in. So it's going to take some time for it to get mixed in properly, but it's not going to be this dark. That's the plan. We might have to add a little more, judging by how much piping and everything there is, but you can always add more later and you can't take it back out. So we're going to go with a little bit for now. I'm actually already liking the blue inside the reservoir. That looks so cool already. Then we'll do the 24-hour run before we boot up the actual PC components. It won't look like that once it's mixed in properly and everything's running together and not creating that fizz, I guess. Feeding it some fluid while it's going. We don't want the reservoir to get emptier than the piping going into it, basically, or I guess more so what's being pulled out of it. We just want to make sure that it's not going to end up sucking in air. Alright, our bottle is about empty. There's no liquid so far on the paper towels. These marks that you see are just from the Sharpie that we used, so that's completely going to be coming off. It'll just take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and I can wipe that right off. The blue dye going through is also going to help check for leaks on the paper towel, because while you can see the liquid once it hits the paper towel, you can also see these shadows, and that's easily mistaken for a small leak. But with the blue, you'll at least be able to see that there's a little bit of color coming through. Of course, the fans can also trick us there, but I think that it'll be enough for us to be able to see quickly enough if there's an issue. I did this kind of extra dramatic design. I've talked about how it's aesthetically pleasing, but I didn't mention that besides getting the Elgato out from right here, it allows me to be able to reach in and work on the PC. I can take the RAM out, I can work on the graphics card, power supply stuff can be changed, cords can be taken off, changed, hard drives, SSDs, everything else can be changed except for like the main motherboard components and of course the CPU, without pulling everything off of the PC. All the water cooling stuff isn't exactly the easiest to put back on. So that is also part of my reasoning for going through with that. If I could go back and bend again, which I might end up doing eventually, I would maybe make this space a little bit less so that you can see this line better. So it would go through a little bit closer right here, and then I would make this a little bit more out because it is very close to too close to the curve for the fitting, and that could potentially be a disaster. I think that it was just enough, but I guess that remains to be seen completely. I'm just kind of going back and forth through each of the fittings and checking for leaks at this point. I'm gonna drive myself crazy tonight, I swear. Next comes the nerve-wracking process of moving and tilting the PC while fluid is in it to get the air bubbles out of the radiator. So I will have to plug this top hole, which, because this is the plugs that come with it, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But I just want to plug it for while I'm tilting to obviously ensure that we're not just sloshing around. This pump is nothing to play with. It does seem to actually push some water through, but we still have to check and make sure there's no air bubbles. So I'm going to try to lift this thing that literally weighs half of me at this point. This part, you can see a lot of discoloration, but that's because the film is still on it. But there's a whole lot less of the fizz at the top, and there's really no bubbles going through the tubing at all. And though I've never actually been sponsored by Corsair or MSI, which I wish I was, but I do tend to stick with those brands. I mean, there's the Elgato, the motherboard, the GPU, And the power supply, we got dragons everywhere here. And then the Corsair extras, at first I didn't like them because their logo is super bulky on some of their items, but then a lot of their items started doing the much more discreet logo just to show the fluids that came with the kit. This clear Corsair XL8 performance coolant. But because I wanted to do kind of the icy blue, I did go ahead and buy, and because I mean eventually fluid's going to be replaced and all that, so it's not like this is a one-time thing, I bought the same Corsair but blue, and this is kind of a darker blue than I wanted, and that's why they were mixed, because I want a super icy blue. Coloring is evening out